All right, hey everyone, we're going to kick this one off. How's everybody doing? Having a good time? B-Sides, Las Vegas, number 5, big anniversary here. So we've got, where'd you go? I lost you. Oh, wait, wrong page. Wrong page. Learning reading's hard. So we got Rick Redman here. He's going to do password topology, histogram where leveling. That's not a mouthful at all. A little talk on strong password enforcement for corporate systems. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rick here.
Thanks. Hello. So yeah, I know the topic, it sounds really boring. And if you actually do password cracking, it's going to be really boring as I just kind of go over the basics. But then at the end, I show you something that's relatively new to kind of give you an idea. So once again, my name is Rick Redman. I've been known as Mingus since about 1993. I also, as I go through this, I create and run Crack Me If You Can. You know, for some people in the room. And so essentially, and I run my company's password recovery service. So this is actually what I do for a living. And my target is usually enterprise, you know, kind of things. You know, incident response, password audits, and things like this. You know, I've published, you know, password sets and rules and word lists, and all these things are all Googleable, and I've spoken at a bunch of places. Okay, so basic background of the project. We won a DARPA Cyber Fast Track to come up with this idea. Because it was all about, okay, I want to make things better. Okay? Because usually my talks are all about offense. Like, oh, here's how you crack passwords. And, oh, hey, let's go laugh at these people. And look at what these morons are doing. Let's abuse that. And, you know, and it's like, oh, here's how people in the Fortune 50 create passwords. Let's laugh at them and stuff. But this time it's about defense, which is different for me. So, and I actually didn't do all, I did not know there was lame animation. Sorry. Okay, so, you know, basic, classic password cracking. You got brute force, you got word list, you got rules. You use the rules against word lists, and it drinks, you know, and there's all these tools that can do it. This has not changed in forever, okay? Well, so that's like the classic offense. Well, the classic defense is everything we've been hearing in the last 2 days, everyone talking about what sucks. Okay, it's, you know, it's minimum length, it's character classes or complexity requirements, and it's history retention. Okay, well, those are the defenses. That's it. You know, and I mean, other places are like, oh, well, our defense is better hash types. So like one example is Reddit. Reddit actually said, hey, everyone changed their password, not because we were hacked, it's because we switched everything to bcrypt. You know, and they actually came out and said it as a defensive measure. And I was very proud of them. I mean, that's Captain Kickass. You know, I really like that. But these defenses haven't changed in 5 or 10 years. Okay? So we need a better defense. We need it based on real data, not, oh, a complexity compliant, that makes everything better. No, it doesn't. We've proved that. Go see everyone else talk about it. Okay? And then we need one that's designed to annoy password crackers. Okay? So we need that. And the eventual sort of goal is, yeah, you could put this on the internet and put it in front of your web app and everything like that, but I'm more worried about Fortune 50, Fortune 100, you know, places that really actually need strong passwords, and they're doing the lame stuff already. Okay, so recent trends. As a password cracker, I mean, it's like, it's been just getting better and better for me, you know, because it's like other people are developing really cool tricks. I mean, the talk about getting up to 92%. Well, getting from 90% crack to 92%, that's hard to do. And people are giving talks about that. Well, that's to my advantage. That's not to anyone, that's no one on the defensive side. So no one's moving to stronger hash formats. You know, Cisco's trying to work on it. Linux is, you know, they're slowly getting there, you know. I mean, you know, now the default's like $6A or $6 or whatever. It's getting there, but like Windows isn't, and single sign-on isn't, and every Fortune X size company, that's what their passwords are stored in, okay? So the other thing that's my advantage is all the existing defense I know about, we abuse it. Okay, well, that makes my job easier. And then obviously things like Patch the Hash in the pen test kind of world just makes my life easier. So in addition, the big advantage, like when you're penetrating, when you're totally breaking into Fortune 50, which is my job, is that like there's still Unix DES sitting around an old ass Linux machine or old Solaris, old AIX. I mean, we just had guys last week on a pen test feeding us password hashes. They fed us $68, which are really hard to crack, and then they fed us DES of the exact same passwords. So it's like, I'm going to crack the DES. Okay, NTLM's not going anywhere. Salted Shaw from LDAP directories, they're not going anywhere. And then obviously the big advantage for me is that, GPU is getting faster and faster and faster and faster. Okay, so going on, talking about my advantage as a, quote, bad guy or a password cracker, it's like the policies that are in place now, they create risk. They actually they don't make things worse, but it makes things more predictable, okay? Now, I have an hour-long talk that you can go and Google my name and cracking enterprise passwords, where I prove this to be true over a period of an hour, but I'm not going to do that, okay? So, in your corporate Fortune X size environment, the password policies make things worse. That's a very important thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind, okay? You require a capital letter, they're going to put it at the beginning, or the beginning of a word. If you're going to have numbers, I mean, this is all standard stuff. We're not learning anything new, right? Numbers, they're going to go at the end. Okay, specials, they're going to go in the end. What's the order of specials going to be? Yeah. We got markup chains. We know all this, okay? But then, in the enterprise environment, we have password rotation, which, you don't have on Google and PayPal and all these other sites that are getting broke, Russian mafias. We got $1.2 billion, V-bulletin hashes or whatever. And it's like, well, none of those have password rotation because that doesn't exist on the internet, okay? Yet, call to arms, rant, rave. But anyways, in the enterprise world, we totally have password rotation. I've got your last 12 hashes, and I'm going to use them to laugh at you. Okay? So all these things are my advantage. Nothing new. I haven't taught you anything new. I'm just building up. Okay, so kind of for the rest of this, we're going to kind of get into math a little bit. So I just kind of have to set the baseline. $2,000, you can build a nice password cracking machine, with 3 cards, and it can do this speed and blah. It can do 8-character NTLM in 3.8 days. Okay? So, and we're just going to kind of roughly base our math on this later, okay? But the key thing is down here at the bottom, when you start thinking about 9-character, 10-character, 11-character passwords on this particular machine, we start talking about 11-character passwords. If you want to brute force that entire thing, it's 8,900 years. I mean, that's a long time. So you can't brute force it, right? Unless you build more machines, which is a great solution. So the whole idea of naive brute force, it's fine for 8 characters, but as you get bigger, it's impossible. Okay, we're still not teaching anything new. Okay, so if I want to start cracking 10-character, 11-character, 12-character passwords in the enterprise, the whole idea of patterns. In hashcat lingo, you got -A3, you give it upper, lower, digits. That's all I'm talking about, okay? And we're used to seeing them, the big password links and blah, blah, blah. We're used to seeing them. But in the enterprise world, where you are required to follow password policy, because you think about it, like your Twitter password, you're not required to follow password policy. But in enterprise, you are. So anyways, all these kinds of patterns. So, if you look at these password November Redskins ones, they all actually have the exact same pattern. Okay? So this is what we're going to be talking about, upper, lower digit special. If you're used to hashcat, it looks like that. John has a way to do it. Other places have a way to do it now. Hashcat tools can spit these out and everything like that. But these patterns, this is what we're going to talk about. And even talking about these patterns isn't that new. But remember, I'm not talking about offense. I'm talking about these patterns in relation to defense, okay? So you take an 8-character password, right? If you think about all those topologies, upper, lower, that's considered 1. Upper, lower, it ends in special, there are 2. There's 1,000... Sorry, there are 4 to the 8. So there's 65,000 topologies, okay? So if you were going to, split it in the most amount of possible to do a brute force, you would have this many topologies, okay? And as you can see, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So, so our example little $2,000 cracking machine or whatever, it would take 8,900 years to crack the 11-character space. Excuse me. So that's not reasonable. That's not practical. But if you take a single topology, a single one of these 4 million, and try to crack it, you can do it in 3.5 hours. Well, who cares? Well, my point is, and I'm about to show you, is that I can tell you which topology is going to work. Based on, what's that stuff called? Math. It's really easy. Okay, so predictable, we're talking about these topologies, these patterns. Do users bias towards certain ones? Do they? Yes. Totally. Yes. Yes, they do. You want math? I'll show you the math. Okay? Can we guess, if we could guess these patterns, that we know are overused over and over again at different companies, can we crack a disproportionate amount of passwords without ever using our brain? There's no word list, there's no rules. It's literally you're running the same damn 100 patterns or 1,000 patterns, and you're cracking this huge amount of numbers, okay? So what we have done, and what I'm going to show is that, I'm a penetration tester. My job is to break into Fortune 50s and Fortune 100s and Fortune 500s and do this on a massive scale. So I'm going to show you that data, okay? Okay, so sample 1, Fortune 100, 263,000 NTLMs, including the hashes. I forget how many password hashes they had, or users versus history. You remember all those topologies we were talking about? We found 7,300 topologies. 7,300 like A3 jobs in Hashcat lingo, right? And so these were the most popular ones. Okay, so that's upper, lower, 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 or however many digits. So that's a 6-letter word with 2 digits at the end. Austin 14 with a capital A, that's the first example. Okay, so those are the most popular ones. But you were talking about 12%, 12%, 10%, 7%, 5% as we get down. So add those numbers up, and we've run 5 command lines on a Fortune 100. I really hate that animation. It's 48%. So, we're talking about cracking, can we get to the mythical 92% crack rate? Well, we're pretty much half there with running 5 jobs. And those 5 jobs are universal across all large enterprises. Which is, I just spoiled the end or whatever. So you take the top 100 the top 100 patterns, okay? No word lists, no rules, no thinking. Literally, it's I'm just going to run these 100 things, and I'm just going to hit enter, At this particular place, you crack 85% of their passwords. You haven't used a word list, you haven't used anything like that, okay? Now, 99.9% of these, 85, they meet password requirements, they meet their complexity requirements and everything. Okay, so remember that. Remember 48% and remember 85%, okay? So here is a graph of their topologies. Okay, so down here, there's not a lot of users using these individuals, but then you see, oh, hey, wait a minute. Whatever topology this is, look how many fucking users are doing it. Look at them all, okay? That's the problem I'm introducing. And, so let me show you a second example. Okay, so this place has 449,000 NTLMs that all 100% met password complexity requirements. We got 93% cracked, 14,000 topologies. Notice it's twice as many as topologies. Okay, well, here are the most popular topologies. We got upper, lower, lower digits. That's Austin 14 with a capital S. The second one is, Austin 14 exclamation point. Okay, just tons of any kind of derivative like that. Those are the most popular patterns. They look very familiar to the patterns we had before. But look at the percentages. So the most popular pattern in this place only was cracked 4.3%. What was it at the other place? It's 12 point something, right? Well, that's a quantifiable number. So you take the first 5 at this place, it cracked 16%, and the top 100 got 62. Which place has better passwords? Well, the second one. Well, what makes them better? Well, if you use just this method, it's the diversity. They're more diverse when it comes to this particular pattern, okay? Notice how in this one, almost all of them contain S because they recently started requiring a special, whereas they didn't before, which is why some of them do them, which is why some of them are better. So here is their graph. Notice how it doesn't quite go as 1 to the X at the very beginning. You know, the most common one versus the least common one, it's not too much of a difference. So their passwords are more diverse, okay? And keep in mind that, I mean, I'm talking about the CEO of a Fortune 100's passwords in one of these. You know, I mean, this isn't RockU we're talking about. This is big enterprise, okay? Okay, so we have all these organizations, because I've been pen testing since '99, okay? And I've cracked passwords since then. It used to be a lot different back then, okay? So to kind of give you an idea, I've been collecting all this and doing this math for 15 years on the enterprise level. You know, so we're going to go, let's go and take every job of size, figure out these topologies, and figure out the most, you know, popular topologies, okay? Which places have we cracked 90%? Let's use that as our basis, okay? So here is kind of what it looks like. Now, this looks like gobbledygook. Don't try to read it. Just kind of go ooh colors. There's 8 examples from 8 very large enterprises. This particular example right here is a certain topology, and you can see every color is a different company. It is the most common topology. This would probably be the first job you would run. Because of a sample of 8 real Fortune X size companies, these are, you know, so you kind of get a feel, you know, hey, this one's pretty tall, and it's valid at every single place. This one's valid at every single place. Ooh, what's this? It's one place where a particular pattern was a very large percentage. Why? Probably because of some insert stupid reason here, okay? So that's actually thrown out because that is invalid data. But I have to show it to you because different places, you know, maybe their default password was welcome, and by the way, it's on 10,000 accounts. And that's why that happens. So just by, you know, making a sample from 8 very large enterprises, we can go and create all these things. And then by these things, it's a list of A3 jobs, okay? Users what's that word? Stupid. So they're going to pick the lowest common denominator. If you know, this is everything we know. This is nothing groundbreaking, okay? It's just like if you only require 3 categories, they're only going to do 4, okay? Or they're only going to do 3. If you require 4, yeah, they're going to do 4. There's obviously reasons in math and blah, blah, blah. That stuff's not all. They're going to do the least things. And this is when the defenses are trying to protect them. So what I'm saying is they're not being protected by these defenses. Defenses that we don't even use on the internet. You know, we don't even, you know, you create an eBay account, they don't have fucking password, maybe they do, but, you know, it's a bad example. Pick another place. You know, do they have password complexity requirements even on the internet? No. I mean, yeah, we're slowly getting there, but, you know, but enterprises have 100%. And let me tell you, it makes my job easier. So this whole idea of complexity requirements is going to make you, you know, safer. It's not. Well, what about harder things? Okay, when I get jobs to do password recovery, it's not usually casual like, oh, will you just do this for us? A lot of times it's more like, hey, oh shit. Okay, so there's incident response, there could be blackmail, there could be very large things. And so there's instances where it's like, hey, 100% of our user base is 15-character passwords that have 2 upper, 2 lower, 2 special, 2 digits. You know, where did that come from? So to brute force that entire thing is impossible. Okay, well, do the same idea of these topologies, these A3 jobs and hashcat lingo, you know, does it work? Well, let's just make up a silly example. You know, you take something like a password like core.rules 2014 exclamation. It's got 2 upper, 2 lower, 2 special, 2 digit. There's what it looks like. It doesn't look like much. If you ran that topology, it would take 92 years to complete, okay? But you'd get a password cracked every 338 days. Well, what if that particular pattern was used by thousands of people? Okay, so it goes on down, and eventually you say for 1,000 users, if you take the most popular topology, if you're able to figure that out, and then you can get a password in 81 hours. Well, that sounds, like, well, sure, it still took you 81 hours to find it, but understand, normal little places, that you use on the internet don't have these kind of requirements. Other places do. And 81 hours is not within the window of acceptance. My point is, for harder passwords, the topology still applies. We still need to worry about it, even if we're enforcing, 12 characters. Okay, so all of that was essentially everything you already knew. I taught you nothing. I showed you nothing. I impressed you with my data that I have access to. You were wooed and awed, and everything was great, but I didn't teach you a damn thing. So let me show you what we've done to hopefully defend against this, okay? So that's the whole idea of PathWell, okay? We need a new way to defend against users being dumb and choosing these passwords that we're used to seeing, these same topologies, right? Rules like minimum length and character set and no dictionary words, we still need those. We're not going to get rid of them, but we're saying, how can we force our user base to create a more diverse set of passwords on a whole from a defensive standpoint? How can we prevent users from gravitating toward the same patterns? Because what I just showed you, and all this data from Fortune X-size company is like, oh my God, they totally gravitate toward the same thing. Here's math. Look, it's true. So we need a way to do that, okay? So we did it. So how do we do it? How do we protect it? Okay. Well, there's different ways you can do it. You can blacklist. So just say, okay, well, in my environment, these 100 topologies are used by frickin' everybody. And that first environment, the first example I said, hey, the first 1,000, it's 85%. Ban those. Nope, you can't do it. You can't create a password in that topology. Okay, in that A3, you can't do it. You just flat out tell them, nope, shut the fuck up. You can't have that, okay? So, well, another idea is don't let multiple users stack up on one. So you can allow a person to do Austin 14, but then if another person comes around and wants to do Boston 13, it's the same pattern, and you're saying, no, all right, I got enough of those. You can't use that one. Okay, so what that does is it minimizes the amount of users that are completely ignoring you and totally hate you. Okay, now another defense is when a user goes to change their password, because remember, in enterprises, people are forced to change their passwords. When they do a password change, there's a requirement. So a requirement of a minimum topology change. So my password is Austin 14, capital A, and the word Austin. I want to change it to Boston 15. That's the exact same topology, right? It's the same A3 job, okay? So those are the basic things. So to give you an idea, if we push this out in the most severe way, here's that very first large enterprise company like that. Well, if I came in and did where leveling that said, for every pattern, only one person can do it, your graph's going to look like this. So I've essentially made it so if I guess a pattern, I'm only going to get one crack. Okay? So I've essentially, if you're hash cracking, you're still going to do your rules and your word lists and things like that, but your brute force jobs, they're not going to land you this, they're going to get you one. Okay. Insert argument here, yeah, I know that there's still other ways, but that kind of gives you the idea of what where leveled means. It means one person allowed to do it, or 10 people are allowed to do it, but, we're not going to let everyone do it, okay? So how much does this increase the amount of work? Okay, so best practice, if you go whole hog on this and say, oh, that's your password, nope, someone else has already got that pattern. If you do full randomness, it's 6 orders of magnitude harder to crack. Okay? Well, what if you ban those topologies and the user knows that? Okay, so we're talking, 2 to 3 orders of magnitude more work for a password cracker to do. Okay? Well, in more realistic, we can't be full-on dicks when users are choosing their passwords, and we're like, no, dude, totally, you can't have 2 lowercases next to each other. I mean, you know, if you put it into pretty rock-hard mode, it's not really going to work. But more educated, you know, we're talking about 4 to 5 orders of magnitude harder to crack, okay? So I mentioned minimum topology change, and the best way to do this is to look at this password. So you got this pretty good password, whatever, 46_ya. If they went to change their password and changed 46 to 47, was there a topology change? No. So think about like an A3 hashcat job. You know, yeah, it's still digit special cap or whatever. So, you know, if you're set up to say you have to do a topology change, that would be directed. But at the same time, if the person changed their password and they capitalized the A, what would be the topology change there? It would be 1. Okay? And there's a word for all this, and I'll show it to you and then be like, go look up that later. I'm not going to tell you about it. Okay, so, you know, this is, we know this, but in the enterprise world, this kills. I wrote rules, you know, 4 or 5 years ago that take advantage of this stuff. Okay? But that I want to start getting you introduced to the idea of scores. Okay? And that's kind of what this is. It's a Levenshtein distance, and you can go and read about this on Wikipedia and just totally nerd out. But essentially, this is the basis of how we're going to protect our users from themselves. You know, kitten to mitten scores 1, okay? Because all you did was you changed a letter, right? Now the topology is the same, but you still, it's your edit distance, okay? So abounds to abounded, that's considered 2. Okay, so we talked about one way where the topology changes, and this is another method. And this is just a known thing that you can go on Wikipedia. It's nothing we invented. This is a mathematical model that's been around since, you know. So using the examples we had before, if you change 46 to 47, the distance is 0. YA to Y capital A, the distance is 1. Password's 13, you capitalize. You know, notice the topology totally changes here because they're adding a lowercase letter, but it's still, the score's only 1, okay? It means there's 1 difference, even though the topology totally changes, okay? But it's still 1. In this example, you've got password 13 exclamation point. You're changing the 4 to an @ sign, and then here you're changing a special to a digit, so you've changed 2 things. Okay? So I'm starting to introduce like, hey, when you change a password, what's the difference between your old one and your new one? Okay? Well, insert skeptic here. Someone in here is going, hey, wait a minute. If you ban all this stuff that's popular, you're kind of telling the attacker what to do and what to not waste their time on. Okay? And that, I agree with you. Okay, so if you were hash cracking a site and you knew they did not allow people to do these certain topologies, then you wouldn't try to crack them. And I would agree with you. Okay? So, but the basic idea is if we go in and blacklist and, you know, there's 65,000 topologies and we blacklist 100 of them, it's 0.2%. So in the real world, yeah, I am going to annoy, if I put 100 topologies that people aren't allowed to use, yeah, I'm going to annoy people. But it's not like I'm saying they have to, you know, invent a new language to come up with things. It's not, I'm not going overboard here, okay? So the whole point of this is I'm leading up to PathWell, okay? PathWell is a PAM module that plugs into Unix that can do all of these things we're talking about using math to say, you know, what's good, what's bad, okay? It does auditing, meaning it lets the user do whatever the hell they want, but it's keeping track of things as you go, okay? So if your environment is like, well, we don't want to crack our passwords, that's bad. It's like, well, you could run this thing in audit mode, and it would tell you what people are doing, but never show you the raw data, okay? Which it sounds horrible. Why wouldn't you want to see the raw data? Because we're all password crackers. Blacklisting, maximum use count. So how many people can use this password? Or how many people can use this single topology, okay? And then when you do a password change, it enforces that Levenshtein distance thing. And so right now it's a PAM module, okay? But taking the same idea, make it an Active Directory module, make it a SiteMinder module, make it a single sign-on module, make it a JavaScript front end for when people change passwords. To say no, because we've got all these other ones for these other like complexity requirements, and they don't frickin' work. Well, we know this works, okay? So when you put it in audit mode, a password is changed, it increments and says, oh, okay, well, now they're using this topology, and it just sort of keeps tracks of things, okay? So it keeps it all in the database, and obviously the database is a little sensitive. I mean, it doesn't have the plain text, but it's got the math that would help someone crack it. So that's all audit does. It audits, it looks at it, it keeps track of you, okay? If the people don't want to crack their passwords, they can just simply run this in audit mode and learn what they're doing. Well, you can put the thing in enforcement mode. Okay, and say, look, the password you're trying to do, Austin 14, it's an overused topology. I'm not going to let you choose it. So it enforces this and says, nope, your topology sucks. You suck. Try again. Okay, so, and obviously what we've done is we have these list of topologies from all these enterprises. We put them in there by default, and immediately people can't use them. Okay. So, and then they can go in and customize them for whatever they want to do, and they can make it be incredibly strong and everything along those lines. But even blacklisting's not enough, because to be purely mathematical about it, we're going to get rid of that one that cracks 12%. But even after we start preventing all that super common stuff, we're still going to have some that, there's still going to be some patterns that aren't on our worst 100 list that are going to show up. And that's going to happen, okay, because users are users. But this is a better than nothing. So essentially, we're distributing our herd across a farther area, because right now places are doing absolutely nothing. Okay, so why not do it to where you distribute your herd so it makes it harder to password crack? Okay, so max use. And this is functionality of the software. Max use is, how many users can use this topology. You set it to 1, and then that's really anal and things along those lines. So I'm not going to go through and tell you how to use the tool, but I kind of want to give you an idea for what else it can do. The min lev, so if someone does a password change, what's the minimum Levenshtein distance that you're going to allow? Okay, so if you say the minimum is 1, then a person can just change the password just a little bit. And that's okay. But if you go up and then say 2, it's got to be pretty different than the one they used before. Summer 2014, then winter to 2014. It's not going to cut it. Okay? Well, I mean, imagine how high you could make that, right? Because right now, I mean, yeah, some places will say, oh, that password, you already used that password. Well, what about, the pattern on that password is similar to the pattern that you had there. Okay, so this is all things that you can enforce from a defensive side. So obviously for the reception of, what are users going to think about this? Oh, they're going to revolt like hell. Could it be, how can we mitigate that, right? And this is where we kind of have a problem is we need test beds. I want to install this someplace, okay? Now, I have clients who we can implement this in PAM, but they actually do proactive password auditing already. Like they do it themselves on a weekly basis. It's pretty awesome of them, So we sort of, we sort of need to know, is this really going to work? Will the users really revolt? Will it really give us the outcome that we expect? So I don't have some magical answer where it's like, oh, dude, look at this, it proved. Well, kind of on that subject is hinting. What do we tell the user when they choose a password that's too similar to the one before? Do we tell them? Do we show them? Do we show them and say, no, we blacklist that one? Do we show them their old one and their new one? Because that means our database knows the old one and the new one, and it's showing it to it. But at the same time, if we don't do anything, and we're like, nope, try again, what's going to happen? The usability is going to plummet. It's not going to frickin' work. And it's going to be revolt. So this is like, hey, I don't want to do any of this, but I think I kind of have to. So, what's the best practice there? And I don't have an answer, Yeah, but then are they being sent to the PathWell server? And then it's because the whole idea is if I compromise the PathWell server and you're storing all these on an individual basis, then I can go, oh, the domain admins, that's their password pattern. So now I know their password pattern. I mean, I still have to brute force it. So the whole idea is if we hint them and tell them the old one, that means we're tying it to them, as opposed to not tying it to individual users. You know, I run a security company. I have to be paranoid about this. I don't want to roll out a product that makes things worse. Okay, so here's the big secret. We totally did this in Crack Me If You Can. So in 2014, we had experiments in there for the pure point of proving that this works. Okay, so we had companies 1 through 5, and they were just non-PathWell. It was normal stuff. It was the majority of the contest, right? Well, then we had a company where the passwords for them were exactly what we're used to seeing in the enterprise world. Okay? Well, then we had a company that was where-leveled but not blacklisted. So essentially, if you found a pattern, we didn't blacklist any patterns. Like they could have the Austin 14 one, but it was where-leveled, so there was only one of them. Okay? So it's kind of like we implemented our own software. Well, then we had Company 8 where it was random topologies and only one person had each of the topologies. Okay? Well, what happened? Well, and so this kind of gives you a breakdown. We had DES, salted SHA, FreeBSD MD5s, NTLMs, and salted SHAs, and then a certain percentage of each one. I'm not going to go over that. It's not worth it. Well, what happened was we kept having people come onto our desk and saying, what the hell is Company 8 doing? We can't crack any of them. And that's a quote from a person on a team. What the hell is that company doing? You know? So this kind of gives you an idea. So we have pro and street. So like the pro team, so we had Company 6, they got 13. Company 7 is like they've implemented it but didn't go the whole hog method. And the pro teams combined, all of them got 101. And then the actual, we implemented our tool in full blast annoyance mode. They only cracked 7. And they had the same amount of number in 6, 7, and 8. So, and these are the best password crackers in the world. Okay? And then street teams were like, fuck it, we can't get any of them. So this is kind of like, since my job is to annoy the password crackers, this was really easy to do. Like I said, wondering about user experience is a whole other thing. Okay. So real quick to kind of just give you an example too, if you wanted to implement this, it's literally just like three lines in PAM. You just go PAM-y, you just go into PAM-D and say, yeah, enforce it. The minimum length is 8. That's my method, and you go there and you say, max use, okay, my minimum length, the max amount of use is 1, so only one person can use it. It's literally 3 to 5 lines of code, and you can implement this, and you'll have to have a PathWell server, but I mean, it's just code, Now it's not open source now, but it will be, eventually published. So to give you an idea of what it looks like when someone tries to choose a password, so a person went to change their password, it says the topology associated with the chosen password has been blacklisted. So the user's not seeing this, but on the back end, you're seeing what they're trying. And at the same time, your logs aren't sensitive, just in case kind of thing. So it kind of gives you an idea of we're blocking users from doing these specific things. Like, look, the distance between their old one and the new one, it's not big enough. Okay? So, like, what's the next step? Like, well, we need to get people to implement this. And so that's kind of where it's the hard part. And, and we need to study things about hinting, and we need to get, real ideas from people who actually have to deal with users. Because my job is I attack users, I abuse users, I don't ever deal with them. So that's why my job's better than other people's jobs. Like administrators, they do hard work. So anyways, this kind of shows you the next step. Like, where are we going? What do we want to do with this? Okay? So, and then I already mentioned this, or open source the PAM module, but then what we really need is single sign-on and Active Directory and non-PAM-based Unix things. Does the same sort of logic about I'm going to change my PIN, hey, your PIN can't be the same PIN plus 1. I mean, because the same thing apply to PIN codes, And then the next step for attackers is if this is implemented, how are you going to abuse it? How are you going to take advantage of the fact that they do this? So, and that's a whole thing. That's a whole next step is to figure it out. Okay, so you say, oh, great, you've done all this research about the topologies. So anyways, if you just go to blog.corelogic.com, we just posted them. So, there, go run those. And at that first place, you'll crack 85%. The second place, you'll crack 48%. Go run these, So anyways, they're just out there. It's just my data is better than RockU for enterprise kind of things, okay? So they're there, you can just Google it or DuckDuckGo it. But yeah, at blog.corelogic.com, there's a blog post a while ago where we published these things. I went the wrong way. Okay, so that's it. I'm done. I have no clue how much time I have left. I've got a lot of time. Oh my gosh. 20 minutes.
Hello. So yeah, we got about 20 minutes left. Plenty of time for questions for Rick here. So we got one. Let me get you the mic here, sir.
Hey, Rick, did you guys consider whitelisting any topologies or allowing the ability to do that to accommodate something like a diceware password or correct horse battery staple type of a format?
No, because the basic idea is that your blacklist would be so small that it's like 0.2% of the whole thing. So the likelihood that the staple cow bends over whatever the word is, the likelihood that is actually in there is so far from the real world that it wouldn't matter. It's a good idea.
I guess I'm thinking less about it being in your blacklist and more about it being a user being prevented from using. Like if I choose 4 dictionary words every time, but they're randomly generated from a sufficient pool, there's not really a problem with me using that topology repeatedly, but I might be blocked depending on the configuration.
Yeah, the basic idea that your topology is so incredibly long that it negates don't support it now. But it is a very good point because it's the thing that the university published the thing saying, well, let's get rid of complexity if they do length kind of thing. So you're right. And the answer is no, we don't do it now. Before you get bored with me and leave, we have boxes of hundreds of Crack Me If You Can t-shirts. And since you came to my talk and stayed and didn't leave, you get free shirts. So we'll have those in the back or maybe actually outside to be a little more polite. So anyways, I mentioned in the beginning, but obviously this was started out of Cyber Fast Track and Mudge and everything. And that's kind of where it all started. And we're still actively working on it. Any other questions?
I think we got one more here from same gentleman.
You clearly recognize that the challenge is going to be with users, giving them feedback on what the problem was. Did you have any initial ideas? Because I know that even with current password policies, that's a challenge with especially sites that restrict silly characters or restrict, they have their own bizarre rules. That's a challenge.
I have to be careful how I answer that. Yes, we have ideas. Yeah, it's kind of the things I raised. Do you tell them your old one and say, no, that one's not allowed? Or do you tell them if something's blacklisted? Because what if I'm a bad guy? Then I can go through there and eventually figure out your blacklist. And so therefore, if I'm not password cracking, if I'm brute forcing, really? Brute forcing, then I wouldn't try those ranges. So it's like a series of 20 paranoid security people sitting in a room and nerding out over their own product and being like, oh my God, how, So I'm just going to indirectly say yes, no, and shake my head in your direction. Question?
Early in your talk, you had Company 1 and Company 2.
Right. Company 1, Company 2.
Right. And Company 2 had a lot more diversity in topologies than Company 1. Do you know what their password policies were that led to that diversity?
They had recently enforced actually requiring a special character, as the other one had not, and they had actually recently enforced length of 9 versus 8. So they actually finally followed recommendations and it just happened to make it more diverse. Or their user base is smarter, or their user base is dumber. I don't know the answer to that, but there is some reason. Now, but the top topologies between the two were still 80% the same, 90% the same, whatever it is, whatever that ratio is.
But it went by sort of fast, but one thing I thought I noticed was that some of the topologies that added to Company 2's diversity were ones that were no longer compliant with their policy.
Right. And that's an unfortunate reality to real data is that it's not always pure. Right. But that's what penetration testing, this is what you find, is that there's accounts that have domain admin that have had the same password for 4 years. They're still crackable. They're still, oh my gosh, you mean they don't change system passwords? Oh my gosh. Which, by the way, I've heard no one talk about anything, but the pass the hash mitigation from Microsoft, HD Moore's about to put out a paper, and I'm just going to fucking steal his thunder, where it talks about like, hey, what's Microsoft's official mitigation on this? How are they going to mitigate it? And sort of the the answer is, hey, everyone should use Kerberos for everything, and then you actually change the NTLM automatically on all systems every 10 minutes. And so they're not getting rid of NTLM, they're just going to make it only valid for 10 minutes, and then it's going to change. Meanwhile, the Kerberos tickets are going to stay open. Theoretically, I don't know that. But I've heard that that's something to think about.
Do your research, bring it over next year. Or some other con.
Or wait for HD's paper. Any other questions? Objections? Sure, in the back.
Can you use that, please?
Being working at a Fortune 100 company, we're forced to have 30, 40, 50 passwords I log into every single day. Right? So you just analyze one system. If you had access to all those passwords, that would become almost trivial.
Yeah.
Also, what about forcing users to MD5 function their passwords and then submit them? That would make them 32-character random passwords, which can also be encrypted later.
Right. Now, insert long discussion about how that wouldn't actually make them random here. But no, I mean, because we run as password crackers and as people who find leaks, we run into that all the time. It's like, hey, wait a minute, these are all obviously MD5s, but they're not cracking. Like, oh, wait, it's because they salted it and then MD5'd it and stuff like that. The main way I've actually seen that done is when people type in their passwords on websites and then they have JavaScript that salts it and then blah, 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 blah. I was joking with someone yesterday, crap, what was it, Britney Spears? No, who's the crazy one? Lady Gaga's website got hacked and all the hashes were rigged and no one could ever crack them, not a single one. But they looked like basic MD5s. And theoretically, they weren't salted, because we had the entire database dump. And by we, I mean that someone else put it on pastebin, okay? But they were never cracked. So what were they doing? Maybe they were doing something like that on behalf of the users, which is what we tell people not to do. And oh, by the way, we totally just proved that you should do that, which sucks for, security guys like me. Talks.
So first of all, we'd like to, let you know that we hate you every year, what you're doing with tracking if you can.
That's my goal.
So, yeah.
Team Hashcat.
Yeah. So when you ban the first 100 topologies, and that could be enumerated, or the password crackers will find out about those, and they'll just avoid using them, then you're going to have another 100, top 100, right, after that.
Right, and I sort of touched on that and said it's not a perfect solution, but the idea is because what he's saying was, yeah, you block the first 100, there's going to be another set of 100 that are the most popular, but the amount of people using that, theoretically, you're spreading it out. So we're not fixing the solution, we're just preventing one type of attack. Because, there's a whole other kinds of attacks, like don't let people use the name of the city, the name of the company. There's other sort of preventative things that we're not talking about. But it's just, yeah, you're right. Right. And then you just continue that until everyone's annoyed. Right. Yeah, you're forcing change. You are forcing them to be more diverse, and they don't know that that's what you're doing, and don't understand the importance. For that first company, they need to be more diverse. It should not be trivial to crack 85% of of their 250,000 employees. It should not be trivial. That should be difficult. But, yeah, questions?
And also, I would just, sorry about that. So, how would you think about securing the PathWell? I think somebody mentioned it before, but I mean, that would be your biggest challenge, I guess.
Right, so the question was about like the actual server. Yeah, I mean, that's a big concern that we're aware of, is that the server itself is sensitive.
Yes.
You know, so it is essentially another weak link on your network. Now, it doesn't store planes, but it's still, I mean, if you had a choice of not having what it has versus what it does have, you'd probably choose to go ahead and have, you know, knowing what topologies are the most common, especially because, like, the second example was salted SHA from LDAP, and those are frickin' slow to crack. I mean, NTLM is one thing, but if we're talking about, you know, 300,000 salted SHAs from LDAP, which are, you know, the SSHA, and they're in the squirrely braces or whatever. So anyways, yeah. So that's when it helps to have a security company run by paranoid people who have been thinking about this since day one. And we hope that what we would recommend and push out would be a... But then again, if places implement this, are they going to implement on their servers, and are they going to do that securely? Well, that's where things get scary, because now it's my product. That's not a product. It's free, or going to be, you know. But if they set it up wrong, it makes me look bad, which sucks. But I guess I know how Apache feels. Anybody else? Okay, you, then you.
Yeah. So you said that you've been collecting this information on topologies for the past 10 or 15 years. So do you have any information as to how topologies have been changing and progressing to help us predict what will happen? Because, I mean, we know the rate at which technology is advancing. So we could, if we knew how the topologies are changing, we could predict how well we could continue cracking passwords in the future.
Right. And what's great about that, it's a great question, is that, like, the defenses aren't changing. Like, everyone's defense is still, oh, we'll change the complexity requirements. And so, like, they're still not doing anything about that. Now, some places are starting to blacklist words and everything. But, like, 10 years ago, it was like, we require 6 characters. I mean, you know, and that was it. And, you know, now it's like, it's just more of the same. It's like, well, now we require 7 characters instead of 6. You know, that was 5 or 10 years ago, whatever. And now that's like, now we require 8 instead of 7. You know, and the one example I have, and we're talking about a Fortune X size company that's just now requiring special digits. You know, just now, they're just now getting to it. Because they finally got Landman disabled. You know, we finally fixed that bug.
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
I don't know why you're laughing. This is like, that's the truth, you know. So anyways. That's sorry, you had a question. Yeah.
So
we'll meet outside for shirts.
So as you're blacklisting all these different topologies and the diversity of the passwords actually increases and whatnot, what kind of effect do you imagine that this has on users actually remembering their passwords, and then by proxy, whatever bad habits they might start picking up as a result of trying to remember these passwords?
Well, I think, and I didn't go into that because, like, I mean, I crack passwords for a living, but I also talk out of my ass for a living. So a lot of times it's like, oh, hey, will you go talk out of your ass on this password stuff? Oh, by the way, you're going to talk to executives who have no clue what you're saying. Okay. And my basic thing is like, look, you can do technology and pay expensive software and blah, 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 do all you want, but having everyone together for a free pizza lunch and train them what makes passwords bad, because 99% of the people don't know. And so that's what I do. As I go to enterprises, I go there for an hour, and my job is to literally make them laugh the entire time by showing them their own passwords and be like, dude, this isn't dumb. This is yours, you know, and being like, capitalizing the first letter, you know, that's not smart, you know, and then literally going in through there, and it's no software, it's no tools, it's no nothing. It's just frickin' telling people, okay? So, and like I have at my clients that I care to protect seen a noticeable difference, and had people come up to me like, oh my God, I was at your talk 6 months ago where you showed us like our passwords, and you know, it's like some guy or some woman or whatever, and they're like, I've totally done it now. I did what you said. I put, you know, I did this, you know. So like, a little bit of human interaction, which that doesn't sound all that great, but if you get paid to do it, it's worth it. kind of like prostitution. But honestly, that is what I tell large corporations. I don't tell large corporations to go install the software or go buy SiteMinder, and its technology will save the day. I say, see what users are doing, get the data, then fucking tell them to quit it. So, okay, let's go. Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, what a great talk. Everybody give it up for Rick. And he promised swag in the back, so...